Hi, it's Summer. Hopefully you remember me, but this is gonna be my April wrap up. I checked and the last time that I posted here or on Bookstagram was back in 2020. So it's literally been like 2 years since I've done anything like book related on the internet. I actually, towards the end of 2020, started developing my art style, and I started like an art business and an art Instagram and stuff, so that's where I've been spending all of my time on the internet rather than book stuff. I will do a little like self promo though. If you do want to look at any of my art stuff, my Instagram and TikTok username is summerconnell.art. I'll put links to those things in the description too if you want to go check it out. But lately I'm just feeling really burnt out of doing art, and I feel like making a business out of it has been kind of making it not as fun to do anymore. So I just feel like I really needed to take a little bit of a step back from art and start doing something else that made me happy, and this is definitely that. I've really missed talking about books on the internet with people, and yeah, I just wanted to tell you what I read in April. This first book is actually one that I read and finished in March, but I just really wanted to talk about it in this video, so I just threw it in, but it's Hunger by Roxanne Gay. I've been wanting to read from her for a while, and I always knew that Hunger would be the first book that I read from her just because it's the one that I felt like I would relate to the most, and I definitely did relate to it in some ways. Even if this is a book that you can't really even relate to though, I just think it's such a great and important read because it just gives you a new perspective. This is a memoir by her about her experience dealing with sexual assault, disordered eating, and also just having a body that isn't really accepted by society. I listened to the audiobook for this book on an airplane, and the audiobook is awesome because it's narrated by Roxanne, so it's perfect. But there's a part in this book where she actually talks about what it's like for her being on an airplane, and usually she has to pay extra for 2 seats or just because she's bigger, and the seats always have armrests that like dig into her sides, and it's a really uncomfortable, kind of like painful experience to be on an airplane. And I was listening to that while I was on an airplane in this same type of seat that I've never even had to think twice about. And so it was just a really eye-opening experience for me. This was a really sad and hard book to read at times, but I think it was just so important, and I definitely recommend it, and I gave it 5 stars. The next book that I finished was a reread, and it's A Quarter of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. This was my 3rd time reading this one, I think. But I think this is my favorite book in the series though. I just really, really love the characters that we follow in this one, and the relationship that we follow. It's a 5-star every time that I read it, and it probably will stay that way for a long time. Just in case you don't want to hear spoilers for the ACOTAR series, you can skip to this time. After I finished Silver Flames, I really just wanted to stay like in that world with those characters, so I just decided to start reading the series again. I did skip the first book. I feel like the more that I'm rereading this series, I usually skip the first book, mostly just because I really don't care to read about Tam. And whenever I do read that book, I usually just skip to the end because that's where everything happens anyway. But yeah, I skipped to Akamath. Also, can we just recognize like how beat up my copy of this is? This is like from when it very first came out, I think back in 2016. It is like rough, and the edges are like yellow now. This book has been through it. I've literally read this book I think 6 or 7 times now. This time felt a little bit different though than all of the other times that I reread it. I feel like I've been able to like step away from it enough to realize some of its flaws. Also, now that I've read Silver Flames and love it so much, I'm kind of comparing this one to that a little bit more. I really hate how perfect Reese is. And like Sarah tries to give him like flaws, but they're always like, he just cares too much about his court, like that kind of stuff where it's like not actually a flaw. I also feel like Sarah tries to tell us so much that like everybody's equals and stuff, but it doesn't really feel like that when you're reading it. Reese definitely feels like he's held to a higher like status or something than the rest of the people in these books, so that just kind of bugged me. I still love this book, obviously. I feel like it's still gonna be a 5-star for me, but I just kind of realized a couple of things this time around. After that, I picked up ACOWAR. This has always been like not one of my favorites in the series. It was still good to read. I've also been reading this series again for research, if you know what I mean. And I feel like there was a good amount of information in this book to kind of help some of my theories and stuff. I have 2 main things that really bother me with this book. First is that I really hate how Feyre calls Reese her mate all the time, like literally every 5 seconds, instead of just calling him by his name. It just got to be really annoying. And then I also just hate how it doesn't really feel like there are any stakes in this book. Even the first time that I read this book, I wasn't very worried about what was gonna happen to the characters. Still a fun time though. I think this one's more of like a 4 out of 5 stars though. After that was A Court of Frost and Starlight. I read this right after it came out because I was just like so desperate for something else to read in this world, but I never really felt like I needed to read it again after that because I didn't really feel like there was anything super important that was in this book. It definitely should have been just tacked onto the first bit of Court of Silver Flames. This was definitely just like a cash grab, which bothers me, but it's whatever. Normally when I'm rereading the books, I skip this one, but this time I wanted to read it again for research. But this book, honestly, I just felt kind of like bugged the whole time because all they talk about is how much money they have, or just like money in general. All they talk about is money, how much things cost, how much they have to pay Nesta, how much they're donating to charity, and it just got really annoying. I think I actually remember having some of that same talk in ACOWAR as well, but like really, really bad in this one. This one is more of like a 3.5 stars, I think. This next set of books just like makes me so happy. I read the Heartstopper series by Alice Oseman. I think pretty much everybody read these in March and April just because the Netflix adaptation, which we need to talk about for a second because I love the adaptation so much. I feel like they did such a good job of like following the books, but also changing what they needed to for it to be like a good TV show. I feel like the books are just like so happy and just go so well. It's great for a graphic novel, but I think for a TV show you need a little bit more drama. And so I feel like the way that they involved that still worked. And I just think that they did a great job having Alice so involved with the TV show. I think that was like what made it turn out so well. I love how they included the little illustrated graphics in the show, and I loved all of the side characters and that we got to kind of like see them a little bit more. The actors just did such a good job. I just love it so much. This is definitely a 5-star series, 5-star books. I just love them, and they're definitely like new favorite books for sure. I only have the first 2 because they're back ordered and like out of stock everywhere. When I was first reading them though, I only had this first book, and I finished this in one sitting and was freaking out because I really wanted just to keep reading. And then I remembered that it started out as a webcomic and it's still online for free. So I just went online and read the rest of it and then watched the TV show. I love Nick and Charlie because their relationship is just like so wholesome and sweet, and like they're so supportive of each other. But I love that that support isn't just for like all of the lighthearted stuff, it's also for like some of the deeper, darker things that they go through. Like I said before, new favorites. All of the books are 5 stars for me. I do think that volume 3 is my favorite though. The last book that I read in April was Fated Throne, and it's book number 6 in the Zodiac Academy series, and it's by Caroline Peckham and Susan Valenti. Because I haven't been very active in the book community, I don't really know how popular this is, except for on TikTok, because that's where I found this one. So I'm so sorry if I'm telling this synopsis and like you've already heard it a million times. This follows Tori and Darcy, who are twins that live in the human world, but when they turn 18, they get taken to the Fae world, and they find out that they're like long lost princesses of this country called Solaria. They have to go to this like college called Zodiac Academy to learn to like control their powers and stuff, and then after they graduate they'll be able to ascend to the throne. But at the same college as them, there are these 4 guys called the heirs, and they are the heirs to the throne basically because Tori and Darcy's parents died, and so their counselors have been the ones ruling in their place, and so the heirs are the counselors' kids. So they've been training their whole lives to take over the throne, so they don't like Tori and Darcy and bully them relentlessly to try to get them to go back to the human world. I've never really read a bullying romance before, and it was brutal. Like, it was rough to get through the first few books. I really haven't watched very many reviews from people about this series, but I feel like it's probably very polarizing. I feel like a lot of people probably are obsessed with it, and a lot of people probably just like despise it. It's kind of problematic. It also is self-published, so there's a lot of editing that could be done for like spelling and grammar. But I really just love these characters and this world. Like, so far this has been like one of my favorite series that I've read. The further that I'm getting into it though, like these last couple books have been a little bit iffy for me. I feel like I'm being bullied by the authors. Like, the stuff that they're doing to these characters, it's just rough. And I think that they've gotten some crap from people through like Twitter or something, because the author's note at the end of this book like almost kind of threatens the reader a little bit. Like, if you say anything, we could do worse things to these characters. And the author's note really was just like them rubbing it in your face, everything that they've done. And it really just kind of pissed me off. So I'm currently reading the next book, and I feel like I'm just kind of like spite reading it because I'm just upset at them. As flawed as these books are, I just feel like it's a really creative world, and it's something that I've never really read before. I, in particular, really like how the magic and stuff in this world works. Like, everything is kind of based around your zodiac sign, and you also have like elemental powers and stuff that you can control, and it's just really interesting. I love zodiac stuff, and I love like tarot cards and like all of that kind of stuff, and all of that is wrapped up in this book. There's a lot with like your fate being chosen by the stars, and just stuff like that. I don't know, it's fun. There really is just like a lot of cringe in these books though. Like some of the dialogue is just a lot. Some of the things that have been bothering me in the last books though are that there are certain characters that are pretty much only used as like a plot device, and everything that they do as a plot device just feels so convenient, and it just feels like sloppy writing to me, especially when the character has so much potential to be an important character and have more of a storyline. I do really love this series. It has been really fun to read despite some of its flaws. This has especially been a fun series to read because it's something that has helped me get through kind of like a tough time, and I also was reading it with my cousin. She's already finished it, at least all the books that are out, so we've been able to talk about it a little bit. She has told me that the book that I'm reading right now, the 7th one, is gonna just piss me off. I'm about halfway through it right now and I am really worried, but it's been so fun to be able to like read a series with her, and so I've had a lot of really good memories through it. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. While I was editing this, I realized that I forgot to talk about one of the books that I read. So the actual last book that I read in April was Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes. This book is set in the future, and the main character, I'm pretty sure her name is Claire, she's the team leader of like a comms outpost system that helps like maintain the communication systems between outer space and like different planets and moons and stuff like that. And one day her team gets a distress signal and they follow it, and it leads them to this abandoned ghost ship, and upon further inspection they find out that it's this long lost luxury space vessel called the Aurora that went missing 20 years ago. It was basically like a luxury cruise ship in outer space, and all of like the most rich and influential people from Earth were on it. So this is a really big find for them, and so they decide that they need to bring back proof that they have found it, but they can't just bring back like a picture or a video because that could have been like faked or something. So they decide they're going to go onto the ship and try to like get something really unique from it that will prove to everybody that they found the actual Aurora. Plus it is a luxury like spaceship, and so they want to like loot it and keep some of the riches for themselves. The beginning of this book was really fun to read. It had a lot of like really spooky, creepy imagery. There's a lot of kind of like paranormal aspects to this book as well, which is like kind of a unique genre blend that I haven't really read before, like the sci-fi horror mixed with paranormal. But I feel like the author kind of like revealed some things too soon that took away some of like the horror and the creepiness that could have happened later on. You see some things early on from the main character that really heavily allude to things that happen to some of the other characters in this book. And so when you actually get to see those events happen to those characters, you already have been expecting it. I know that's really cryptic, but I just don't want to give away too many spoilers in case you do want to read this book. And there were a lot of things about this book that I had ideas about and things that I had kind of called and figured out way before the characters did, and I just felt like I was waiting the whole time for those characters to catch up to where I was at. I just wish that the pacing had been better and that those creepy moments had the full impact that they were supposed to have. Those were all of the books that I read in April though. Let me know in the comments what books you read, what your favorites were, and I will see you in the next video.